Hello, hello, hello. My name is Karita Robert Green, and welcome to the Unwrap Your Gift podcast, the show where we dance in conversation about all things to do with life, how to find your gifts, and hear stories from inspirational people around the world. You will learn how to celebrate who you truly are, unwrap your gifts, and step into your true, authentic power. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to season 2 of the Unwrap Your Gift podcast. This season is all about legacy. What is your legacy? Thank you to everyone for tuning in today. I am so excited to have you. Today, we are joined by the amazing Steve Whyte. Steve is a 15 times author from the UK who uses the art of writing to inspire hope in individuals. Steve is also the founder and executive producer of Crown Ink-orporated, a production company which specializes in ethical storytelling. For over a decade, Steve has been writing and touring his books across various continents, reaching hundreds of thousands of people in search of upliftment, healing, and hope. His message is rooted in his own story of abuse, affliction, addiction, bereavement, including the loss of his daughter, both physical and mental health. Through his books, Steve shares a message of healing, hope, love, and joy, all while creating safe spaces for his readership to feel without guilt, shame, or fear. He is passionate about serving those who have suffered trauma, adverse circumstances, a loss of identity, and those who have struggles with their self-worth. He believes that every individual has within themselves the power and capacity to find healing and growth, and through his art, events, and guest appearances, he shares wisdom, perspective, and love to help others to live a more authentic and fulfilling life of freedom. Wow, 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 Steve. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor, absolute honor. So I'd love to know, just tell us a bit about your journey so far. Tell us a bit about your journey so far.
My journey, I grew up in London, Northwest London, the beautiful town called Harlesden, as everyone knows it. Really small town. But when I was growing up in this particular area, it was best known for knife crime, and the typical energy surrounding it was nothing good comes from Harlesden. And I don't know what it was as a child, but I never felt comfortable with accepting that, because I knew a lot of talented, really ambitious, positive young people, girls and boys, many of them my peers. And, you know, I really just kind of felt almost like it was our responsibility to change the narrative. You know, not everyone in Harlesden is in a gang or is on drugs, and you know, just kind of adopting that road life. And so I had a really good network of really creative people around me, whether they were athletes or singers. And so I just kind of got involved in a lot of different activities. There were a lot of youth clubs, not something you see very much today. But we really just got to like explore our gifts or different potential gifts, by having these facilities in place. And I do owe a lot of my first kind of introduction to confidence. I owe that to those youth centres that gave you that platform to, you know, fine tune certain skills like photography or singing or producing or something else. You know, we used to do crafts and different things like that. And then at the end of summer, we do this big kind of show, Brent Summer University, and you get to showcase what you've been working on, you know, every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 hours. So that really gave us a platform to really kind of start to nurture those seeds of confidence. And But while I was doing all of that, my heart was really in sport. I played basketball. And so my ambition and my dream was only to play basketball, make it to NBA. And that was going really well. And then I had a really bad injury. And then my life kind of took a turn where it's just like, man, I put everything into this sport. What am I going to do now? And so I just did what I felt was the right thing to do, just get into the system, study, and get a normal job, be a part of the system of how this world operates. And I got into some admin jobs and then just worked my way up until I ended up in accounts. But all along that journey, I was still making music. I was still being creative and trying to make it a career in some way, whether it be through producing or whatever. But then one day at work, I collapsed. And I got found in the bathroom, and it was later discovered that I have epilepsy and I had a seizure. And so the next few months were really rocky because I was like being investigated and kept having them, and they weren't sure what it was and they couldn't control it. And so I couldn't work anymore. And so I was literally bedbound. I was afraid literally to just leave my bed and go to the bathroom because I didn't get any warning. I could hurt myself if I have one. And so around this time, we were transitioning out of MySpace into Facebook. And I just remember going online. I was feeling so down and just like I have no, I lost my independence, and that really bothered me. And I just didn't want anyone else to feel that way. So I just remember going online and writing, "I wish you better days." And then the next day I wrote it again, and I think I did it for about a year. And then people just really looked forward to seeing that at the same time every morning, the same message, nothing else, not selling anything, just a really nice start to the day. And that evolved into quotes and then blogs and then newsletters, and then kind of created this online magazine. Then I started receiving a lot of emails, people asking me for advice. By this point, I had a website, a very small site. People asked me for advice on life, and I just felt like, why are they asking me? I'm the one that's in bed, jobless, just keyboard warrior. I wish you better days. And I realized then that I have something that they need. I have something that I can't see in myself yet, but they can see. But I was replying to every email, and then as this world goes, as you start to put out a certain type of content, you don't just attract people who are interested in that content, you attract other people who work in that field. And so I started to then collaborate with life coaches and personal development coaches and event hosts. And one particular guy, name's Harry Shade, he wrote the foreword for my first book. And I basically had asked him, how do you deal with all the emails? And he was just like, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, I'm maybe getting about 200-300 a day. And I'm replying to every single one of them. He was like, you can't do that. He was like, what you should do is write a book, and then you can answer everyone at the same time. And so that's what I did. I went back, copied and pasted everything I'd ever written. I put it into my first book, and it was called Align Yourself. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the rules, but it was a very important step for me. One turned into 2, 3, and then so on. And I just refined it.
Sorry, what year was Align Yourself?
Align Yourself was 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, I released it on the 10th of October. So 10/10/10. 10th of October 2010. And then the Presence Driven Life was February 2011. And then Above and Beyond was August 2011. And then Better Days was December. So that was the first 4 books all happened within 1 year.
Wow.
And then, kind of refined the process, realized I was going too fast, doing too much. And then we just progressed and progressed. And it kind of led to what was my biggest book at the time, The Love Manual. And, you know, business was booming, traveling, touring. But alongside this send, life was also happening in the background. You mentioned in my bio, I lost my daughter, and there were other traumas and things that weren't on social media. You know, they weren't in front of the world. And so, you know, you're pouring into people every day, and there's no room for you to pour into yourself and until you're empty. And so, yeah, I had a breakdown. My last book, I think it was my 12th book. Yeah, that was called The Suicide Note, and that was my last book. And then I just deleted everything, came offline, and I spent those next 4 or 5 years just really working on myself away from everything. And then I came back with Crown. And the question I asked myself, because I told myself I'd never come back online unless it's for something really special. And so when I wrote Crown, it was for my son. I was never supposed to release it. I just wanted him to have something when he gets older. But it was, the question I asked myself was, if for any reason I weren't here to see my son grow up, what's the message I'd like to leave with him? And essentially it was that you're royalty, despite your differences, your challenges, things you go through, your royalty. And so that's where Crown came from. And so, yeah, perfect kind of segue into legacy. Like, what is it you want to leave behind? And for me, it's Crown. This whole series is, I feel like, my best work, but also my greatest contribution to, I guess, society and global communities so far. So yeah, it feels like that has been a very important, the most important part of the journey.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, and I love the fact that you started at the beginning from where you were. And you know, I think sometimes online we think that people's lives is just perfect, right? They never show behind the scenes of what it's really like. So it's great that you shared a bit some of the challenges that you faced as well along the journey, and to get to the space of Crown. You know, 15 books is, some people are always talking about, I'm going to write a book, but to write 15 books, and they are amazing books, which I must add, I have some here. Crown.
That's awesome.
I love
That's
Crown.
awesome.
And, you know, just finding out about the Crown and your son and legacy, and, you know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think it's important to have that message in the world that people can be inspired by. And it sounds like it's very much of a gift for you anyway, just to write these books.
It didn't feel like that before Crown. Like I said, how did I start writing the first one? It was because of pressure. It was because, how am I going to answer all these people? And he was just, you know, Harry said to me, yeah, well, if you write a book, you can answer all of them. And then the second one was like, well, I can't be a one-hit wonder, so now I've got to do it again. And then it's like, okay, you've done 2, do another one. And it's just constant serving. And the first books weren't that big, they were quite small, so people would finish them quickly and then want another one and then another one. Then I just really had to think about, what's my message here? Because I want all of the books to have the same message, just delivered differently, maybe to different audiences or what it may be. And but it was when I had my breakdown, I realized the message was incomplete. The message before was very much success-driven, career-driven, positive self-help. It was all about you. It was all about me, what I can get, what more I can get, and get more and strive higher and make more and do more. But since I went through that, I'd like to call it you can call it a hiatus or my wilderness experience. I realized it's not about getting more. It's about less. So I wanted to become more minimal. I wanted to simplify things. I wanted to only keep things of value in my life, you know. And so once I started to strip all of those things away, brick by brick, I started to see what was really important. And so the motive then changed for the writing. You know, it has always been about helping people, but ego does get involved, you know, and you have to be self-aware and authentic enough to say, okay, who are you without the followers? Who are you without the books? Who are you without the money? Who are you without anyone retweeting your posts? And that's the journey I had to go on, and I'm still on every day. It never ends. And the answer to the question is crown. That's who I am. And that's who every single person who reads it is too. At your core, you are sovereign, you are imperial, you are majestic, you are everything. And sometimes we get distracted by things that are not necessarily real, or measurements of what's popular, what's good, or what's not. And we can lose sight of that royalty. And then we end up chasing the wrong things, aspiring to get to a certain level, comparing ourselves with others where we're at, or looking at our age and saying, oh, I should have done this by this age. But actually, you are who you are, and that's more than enough. And that's really the message of Crown, that it's okay to just be you. There's no shame in that.
It's the owning your own power.
Yeah, and so yes, you mentioned that Crown is like, it's a gift for me too. It is, because I feel like Crown was the first time I was allowed to be creative. The books before, while they're really good, they're information transferable. It's almost like having a mentor, you know, who has, through experience, information, learned a lot, can share it with you, guide you. But I'm giving you information you don't have. With Crown, all the information's already within you. I'm not giving you anything.
Listen, when I tell you, I was reading Crown before we started this interview, and there was a paragraph I wanted to share with you because I was just like blown away. Okay. So you carry bricks from the past into the present, and the irony, you build the same house. Many of the bricks that you use stem from the emotional response of the pain that you have endured, and they carry within them the energy of trauma, sadness, and disappointment, one brick upon another, containing the substance of brokenness. This wall meant for you for so much protection from the outside world, now a prison that holds you hostage with the skeletons that you have tried so hard to avoid. Wow. What was you talking about in that?
It can be interpreted in many ways. I would say within the context of the story, the characters are a bit of a crossroad, and they find it hard to see themselves as anything other than broken. And because they identify with this brokenness, they're not aware that the materials that they're using to shape the next day or chapter or page of their life is from the same broken material. It's the same thing they've just left. So imagine being in exile, getting out of exile. No, a better example. Imagine being in the wilderness and you've used all of your power and energy whatsoever that you have and capacity to escape the wilderness. But when you get out of the wilderness, you still live like you're in it. Eventually, the new place you're at will become a wilderness. And so that's where the character is at this part of the story. And it's not wrong if you do that. That's another thing. There's no judgment for people who repeat the same patterns, you know, the same trends. destructive behaviors. There's no shame in making these decisions if it's all you know. But the key part of that passage is you're doing it because it keeps you safe. So you build those walls because your heart's been broken. Someone's lied to you. And so you don't want it to happen again, or you don't want to feel the same way again. And so you build this wall to protect you. Unfortunately, the walls just get stronger and stronger, thicker and thicker, taller and taller, until you're trapped in your own little world with all of your trauma, with all of the feelings, and all the things you've hidden from people. I call them skeletons in Crown. They're characters in the book, but they're skeletons, and all the things that everyone's got them, and they're hidden, but you're trapped with them. And so you can't hide from them. Now you have to see yourself, you know, and so I call that cavern of protection turns into a prison. But there is a way forward that great segue. I think my recent post, it's not going to be forever if you're listening to this, but as of today, the 1st of August, my latest post, it says, and when you feel safe, build a garden around your heart instead of walls, you know? And so, yeah, this is my garden, you know? And so, it's you brick by brick, you can start to drop those defenses, and you'll start to cultivate a life where you don't have to protect yourself because you are around the right people, and you won't make the same decisions that you've made before. But that's really what that passage symbolizes.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love the way you just broke that down as well. And I'm sure a lot of people listening or watching can relate to this as well. And it reminds me of a quote. I still quote you to this day, where you said, don't let your comfort zone become your prison. It's very similar to that. Don't let your comfort zone become your prison. So often we want to keep in the same job or with the same people because it's what we know. And all of the threat is outside of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in Crown 1, I've got a chapter called The Comfort Throne.
Ooh.
And it gave kind of like a new spin on the whole comfort zone. And it was actually saying, like, if you're comfortable where you are, stay there. You know, it's quite rebellious. It's the opposite of what I once said, but there are two sides to everything. You may need to stay in that place for a while. You may need to stay in that place of comfort for a while. I think I also said to you, your job can fund your dream.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so your job is comfortable, what you're used to. Yeah, you may need to stay there for a while before you go on, you want to be an entrepreneur. So don't let it become your prison, but it's okay if you're comfortable there for a while. It's for a season, you need it until a time when you are ready to make the next step. And that's really the journey of Crown. Is nothing happens before it's time, and you shouldn't feel any pressures to have to be anything more than you are, based on pressures of the world or whatever external forces or powers or influences. Crown is about looking inside you, and being navigated from the inside, not the outside.
So often we avoid that looking within, don't we?
It's because it's a mystery. No one else can see it. We don't always understand it. And a lot of our world is outside. And so we're not conditioned, or we're not programmed, or we're not nurtured in a way to look within. Everything's outside, you know. Even social media, you're just looking outside, you're looking at other people's lives, you're looking at what they're doing, but there's nothing that's saying look within. Well, there hasn't been much, but then now Crown is here. And you have no choice but to look within with Crown.
That's it. And I was going to say, you've turned it into, is it like a movie as well? Do you want to share a bit about that as well?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things, before I speak about the film, one of the interesting things about Crown that a lot of people don't know is it's not a self-help book. It's a fictional story, but you're the main character. Okay. And so I'm speaking to you throughout the whole book. All the other characters in the book are speaking to you. And so I like to call it a reflective novel. But the whole thing happens inside your mind. And, you know, you go on this journey and you can shape the story however you like based on what you've been through in your life, what you're going through now. You can really tailor it to make it your own. You can write in it. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with it. But one of the things that was so fascinating about it is that everyone who read it related to it. So how can I write a book that's about the person reading the book, yet we're all so different, but yet we all relate to it? And that just really showed universally that we all have very similar needs. We all have very similar struggles. And yeah, it just really highlighted to me that maybe we're not teaching the right message here. You know, maybe the message needs to be more about feeling and healing and that internal journey. And so, you know, my film company started to working with a lot of other projects, and I was like, you know, one day I should shoot this as a film. Like, it has feelings of Narnia and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and The Handmaid's Tale. It has all of these amazing shows that I've been influenced by in some way or just really admired. Has kind of notes of all of them. And I was like, I'd love to shoot this. Unfortunately, I can't shoot this like it is in the book because that's a Hollywood movie. And I'm not there right now. And that's my fault for writing in phoenixes and dragons. And, you know, but I said, what I can do is shoot a short film touching on some of the key topics in it. And that was the plan. And then as I was shooting it, I have a great team, amazing cast. I just realized that actually there's scope to do more here. And so it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And it's currently at like 30 minutes at the moment, the film. Taking a break so I can finish the book. But yeah, the film is just kind of based off the book, loosely based off it. But yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And what does legacy mean to you?
I think at different stages of my life, it's meant different things to me. I think when I was aspiring to be an athlete, the one thing I didn't say is while I did want to make the NBA, I had it in my mind from very young that when I make it to the NBA, I'll make this much money and I'll be able to open up, you know, educational centers or youth centers and help people. It was always help people. And so that was the reason why I wanted to, because for me, basketball just seemed like a game, didn't seem like a job. So I didn't really see that as being the job. I saw the helping people once I've got the money as the job. Once I didn't do that, it's like, okay, I'm going to do music, but my music's going to be positive. I'm never going to curse in my songs. I'm just going to give positive messages and writing songs like Better Days and different things. And once I stopped doing music, it's like, okay, the books are going to be this. At each stage, it was just like, it was kind of, the word legacy felt like it meant how I'm remembered when I'm gone. But I've gotten a bit older now.
Okay.
And I've learned that, and I've just written this in The New Crown, like we're on this planet for a very short period of time. So your existence, the blink of an eye, this is what I wrote, your existence, the blink of an eye, your non-existence, the remainder of time. And then yet you stand on the edge of the earth, contemplating whether you are on the outside looking in or the inside looking out. And this changed what legacy meant to me, because before it was like, man, when I'm gone, I'll be remembered in this very author. I want people to really look at Halsden and say, look, see, something good can come from Halsden. But your existence is the blink of an eye, not just mine, yours, the person after me. And so if you're, again, me. If my goal is to be remembered, how long is that memory going to last? If the next person's existence is the blink of an eye, and your non-existence is the remainder of time, like maybe the goal's wrong here. Maybe I'm putting so much into trying to craft how people will choose to remember me. That's not my responsibility, that's theirs, you know? And so legacy then changed. As I got older, I realized that my children don't care about how I'm remembered when I'm gone. They care about now, you know? They care about what's the legacy of today, you know? And I think I got a bit infatuated by, I have to do this before I die. Because I have to leave this behind. I have to buy this house and leave it behind. No, I want my children, and I want my readership, and I want you, and I want the people who I encounter to treasure the memory of me and my work and our interactions now, not when I'm gone. There'll be something after me. You don't need to hold on to me. There'll be something after me. Let that have its thing, you know? And this wasn't the first time I thought about this. It didn't convict me the first time, but it definitely brought confirmation when I got to this point where I realized it's just about now. I used to, when I was in South Africa, I did a speech, and it was, I don't know where it came from, but I actually said it on the platform. You know, we're always looking back to Mandela, to Martin Luther King, to Malcolm X. Who are the people of today? Now, this is no shade or taking anything away from the people who have gone before us. We honor that. But at some point, we need to honor what we have here today. Who are those among us that are imparting something that is valuable? You know, that's a gift. Why do we have to wait until they're gone? Because a lot of those people weren't appreciated in their time. And so I think that's part of it as well, being present and conscious enough to appreciate the gift that people have while they're here, no matter the scale of them, whether people are buying their art paintings now or not, and they will do it when they're dead. Like, can you appreciate the art now? And so my view on legacy today, and who knows, it may change again. It's in the little details of each moment that I live, everything I do, my routine, how many hours I write for, how much I put into Crown. That's a today thing. I cannot control the future on how it will be looked back on. Some people may look back at my work and say, he was too rebellious. He broke too many writing rules, cancel him. After all of my hard work, that's what they might decide upon. And that's okay. But I can't shape a legacy of me when I'm no longer here. I can only really focus on what I can do to create a legacy of nows each step of the way. And hopefully I leave, you know, some print on the world in a small corner of the world. And I'd be happy with that. You know, impact someone's life, saves one life, I'd be more than happy with that. But it's not my view on legacy is about these moments, these interactions, because in a way they immortalize us. And someone may need to hear this today. They may need to hear it 5 years from now. But the only thing we can control, right, is here. And so I think legacy happens in moments. And I think we should legacy forwards, not legacy backwards, because we're here now, we're not there yet. And I think that's where I was messing up before. I was so focused on the end result. I was missing out on the perfection in these little moments and these nuances that really create the legacy in the first place, you know.
Legacy is now.
Legacy is now. It's the
Now.
only time it's all that exists. As much as you have memories of yesterday, you can't prove to me yesterday happened. You can't take me back there, you know. As much as you hope for tomorrow, and you may have plans in your diary for tomorrow, you don't know for sure that you're going to make it. And so you often hear stories about people who, the moment they're told that they have a certain amount of time left to live, critical illness, they start living their best life. They start appreciating the people in their lives. They start making those phone calls. They start doing all the things on their bucket list because they've been told there's an end date. We all have an end date. You know, for some that's tomorrow, for some that's 50 years from now, but we all have one. And so if there's something that makes someone who's got a terminal illness compelled to make the most of the now, then shouldn't we all do that? Do we need a terminal date? Do we need to know the date or an estimate to take the now seriously? And I think that's legacy. I really do. I think just owning the now is a big part of it. And I'll share one more thing, right, before you go on to the next question. I know I've said a lot.
Good dancing.
I watched an interview of someone. He's a filmmaker, and it was an encouraging video. I'll see if I can find it and you can link it or something. But essentially, he was talking about at many stages of his life feeling like he was behind. He just didn't know what he wants to do with his life. He doesn't just at each stage, in school to college to uni into his being a parent. Now he's in his 30s, approaching 40. He just didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. And he had all these goals. It's like, I'll try this and I'll try this. And eventually he really found out that he loves photography, right? And so he wants to be a photographer. And anyway, fast forward, you know, he now has a YouTube channel that makes so much money just talking about photography gear, showcasing his filmmaking. And he said he could never have known that that was going to be his path, because when he was a kid, this technology didn't even exist yet. So he was just like, all he knew is he wanted to do photography, but he was like, it took so much pressure off him. And he said he realized how much pressure he was putting on himself to be anything, to make it. And he was like, the truth is, when he first picked up a camera, there was no such thing as social media. There was no such thing as digital media. There was no such thing as 4K. There was no such thing as dual slot memory cards and 8K and 3D cameras and all this stuff. And he was like, so he had a gift. And I thought of you. He had a gift and it wanted to be unwrapped and unpacked, but the technology wasn't there yet. And so he had to wait until the right now. And now he's doing what he loves within a system that supports what he wants to do. So he was like, younger him could never have known that all that was going to happen because that the technology wasn't here yet. We didn't even have Wi-Fi. We didn't even have the internet when he picked up that camera the first time. So how could he have possibly known this is what I want to do in my life? Mm-hmm. And so this is why it's important to go back to legacies. You can't map out the whole life because you don't know what's coming. And it's also encouragement to those who may feel stuck. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Maybe the idea that you have or the gift that's within you, the technology hasn't even been created for it yet. You know, but in the right now, you will align with that thing and boom. Mm. And so that definitely encouraged me, but also showed me why it's so important to live in the present, because the world just might not be ready for you yet. You know, so
yeah, and it's a great point you raised about sometimes we're just ahead of where our gift is, and we hear those whispers, do this, go here, talk to this person. We hear those little whispers, and they lead us sometimes to where we need to go without us even knowing what we need to be doing there. We get these little whispers, and being in the now and being present to those whispers allows us to take the right path, if there is a right path. I loved how you threw the whole legacy in the air.
just flip it upside down. The legacy is now.
It's now and now and now. Amazing. And you started that conversation about gifts, and this is the Unwrap Your Gift podcast. It's all about empowering people to stop, look within, explore what's your gift. How could you use it to share it with the world? So I always ask our guests, what would you say is some of your gifts?
Writing is my gift. I actually think it's my only gift. Yeah, I think everything else that I'm really good at is a skill.
Okay.
I've worked really hard. Writing was the first thing that I did that felt like it didn't need much work. I needed to understand the rules around books and the business, and that's learning, but it felt very effortless. When I used to write songs, when I used to write scripts, emails, letters, poems, raps, it just felt like the words were just always there. It's such a hard thing to explain. It's just like, it just felt very natural to me. Everything else I had to work exceptionally hard for, so the designing, the websites, the filmmaking, I wasn't good at any of this. I had to work and practice and refine those skills. And then I had a goal of mastery. I just wanted to get to a level of mastery in everything that I do. But yeah, I would say writing is the gift, because it's probably if I could only do one thing for the rest of my life, it would be to write.
Writing, yeah.
Yeah.
And how would you, what advice would you give to somebody, or just not even advice, tips would you give to people who are trying to explore what their gifts are?
I think the most important part, or one of the most important parts, if it's your gift, then you cannot understand it without knowing who you are first. Because if it comes from you, in order to shape it into something, you have to have an understanding of what it is you're carrying, right? If you buy a piece of furniture, and you get it in a box, okay? It's a gift, right? It's unwrapped. You can unwrap it, but you may not know how to assemble it. You may need some instructions. But the instructions are not enough if you don't understand how to read them. And so you can go to a life coach, you can go to a therapist, you can go to a doctor, you can go on YouTube and watch tutorials, all you like. But if you don't understand the instructions and you don't know who you are, what you're working with, it's gonna be really hard for you to turn this thing into whatever it's supposed to be. And then what you may do is like take something out and say, okay, well, it's not going to be a wardrobe, but you know what? I could use this piece of wood for a tabletop. And now you've turned it into something else, but it wasn't supposed to be that. And that's sometimes what we do. We take parts of ourselves and we say, oh, okay, I have a backup plan. Plan B, if I don't get my degree, I'll work in Thailand for 6 months, or I'll just take a gap year. And it's like we're trying to now turn something that wasn't supposed to be that thing into something else. So I think the most important part of, unwrapping your gift or learning how to find your gift is first learning who you are. And so my advice to everyone really is build a relationship with yourself. And if you don't know how, think about the things that you do to build relationships with others. You spend time with them. you do things with them, you pay attention to them, you listen. These are all things you can do by yourself too. And that's how you start to build a relationship with yourself. And once you start to do that, you become more familiar with yourself and you start to learn your habits and what you like, what you don't like. You get a bit more comfortable looking within, and then before you know it, you see what you're passionate about. You'll see what comes easily, effortlessly. And you realize, oh, that was a skill. That was a skill. I worked hard for that. I was trained in that. But this thing was always in me. But sometimes you can't see through all the clutter, you know. So you have to kind of strip the layers back until you can find it. But I believe your gift finds you. But it won't find you until you are in the right place to receive it. You know? But yeah, just a lot of self-awareness and sacrifice. You have to sometimes turn off some of those friendships so you can build your own relationship with yourself. Yeah, sometimes you just got to unfollow people because you're too distracted. Sometimes you don't be on social media. Sometimes turn your phone off, you know, don't watch as much TV, just whatever it is where you can dedicate extra time into you. I think that will help bring you closer to discovering that thing for yourself. For me, it was a very different path. I was forced to be alone. I was forced through health I had nothing but, okay, what are you going to do with your life? Who are you? You know? Yeah, I was forced into this space, but it was needed because I was too stubborn. I'm going to keep climbing this ladder. I'm going to get to the top of it. And God was like, no, you ain't. You know, I'm going to humble you. I'm going to bring you down to the bottom, and I'm going to lift you up to the top. And just as you get to the top again, I'm going to bring you back down to the bottom. And you're going to come back with a book called Crown, and you're going to give the full message this time. And so you say advice for someone who's trying to discover their gift. It's not something that once you discover it, that's it forever. No, like people used to say to me when I used to post stuff to all these people who used to write in the comments underneath any quote I wrote, easier said than done. This is someone here who's said it, done it, succeeded in it, failed in it, started again, done it again. So it's like more than qualified to be able to tell you like the journey is up and down. And the gift part of discovering it, it's, yes, my gift is writing. What kind of writing? You know, I've only felt like I've discovered my true writing voice, my last 4 books. Before that, all the stuff that I wrote was great, but it wasn't fully me, you know? And so there are levels to just unwrapping your gift. It's like a nesting doll. You know those dolls, take one off. Oh, someone gives you one, it's all big. It's a big one. And you're like, oh, this is lovely. Thank you. Then you unwrap it and you keep going. And years later, like as you become wiser and you experience more, another layer, and then you're left with this tiny little doll at the end. I think that's success. You've got so small, minimal, this is what you're left with. And that's where I think I'm at now. I've stripped so many things away to the point I've just got this tiny little doll called Crown now. But it's more powerful than that starting gift, that global, popular, loud gift, or that big nesting doll, you know. And but it's a continual journey, and I would say start by spending more time with yourself and doing things you enjoy. Maybe that will give you the clarity to be able to see or be led to where you're supposed to go with your life.
It's a journey. You know, you really touched upon the journey part, the up and down like a roller coaster. And it's who are you being in those moments, through the highs, through the lows, who are you being? It evolves over the time. So I'd love to know, what are you up to nowadays? What can we find out? What's your projects? What's your visions? What can we look out for?
In the immediate, future, early. I can't really put a date on it. The next book is the final Crown book. It's called Crown Infinity. And you can call it a spin-off. But I think it's part of the story now, the way it's shaped out. So yeah, I'm currently still working on that, and it's progressing well. I've got a draft of it here. Actually, this is the only copy in the whole world of this, and I love that feeling to be able to say that. Like, I've got I know it's my book, but it just feels like so precious. Like, this is the only one that exists.
And to put this into perspective, you've got thousands of books out there in the world right now. So to have,
it's like,
there,
to have the only one, you know, it feels good. And yeah, so there's still more work to do on it. So there's that. I'm also working on a children's book at the moment. It's called I Am More Than Enough. Again, it stems from the Crown series. It's for primary school children aged 5 to 8. And it's about a little child called Royal, who goes on a journey through their garden, and they get led by this butterfly, and the butterfly leads them into this magical forest, an underwater world called Avon, which is from Crown. And they meet different characters along the way, and each character gives like a message, kind of like encouragement, just kind of building up their self-esteem and reminding them that they are more than enough. And yeah, it's a really beautiful journey. I'm working with a phenomenal illustrator. It's coming along. And yeah, so I hope to be back in the school soon, talking to kids in assemblies. Once this Crown's finished, I'll put them both out. And then I plan to tour again. I haven't toured any of the Crowns. So once it's complete, I'll tour the whole series. So yeah, I've been working right now with my team and just kind of putting some ideas down on some of the places we'd like to go. And then the film, I finished the film. But I'll tell you something so beautiful, just to touch back on the last point about how your gift can evolve. So I said, yes, I've always known my gift's writing. And like I didn't know in the beginning that I wish you better days.
yes,
Whatever had me say that, had me compelled to say those words, turned into a business, Better Days Project, okay, which turned into a charity, Better Days Charity, which turned into a magazine, Better Days Magazine. And then it was an online wellness center, you know, and then it was coaching, then it was programs, there was radio. Yeah, we did radio, Better Days podcast. And then one day, Better Days was no more again. Like, it had done its time, okay? The same thing now. So I was a certain type of writer before, and then I've come with Crown, and there's a Bible scripture that says your gift will make room for you, okay? So I've come back with Crown, and to think I was not going to even put it out. It was my daughter that said, this is really good, Dad, you should put it out, okay? And to think what Crown has done since 2019 till now, how that's evolved into a film, has that's evolved into a whole new Better Days company. So Crown Ink came from Crown. You know, now we've got, you know, children's book, and it's going to enable so much more to be created through the ethical storytelling lane that I'm really passionate about. And so again, like the gentleman who didn't know what technology was going to exist in the future, you may just be doing that first brick of something that's so much bigger than what you think. So yeah, don't despise small starts, because yeah, you just don't know where it's going to go. So all the things I'm working on now are all a result of me being obedient and doing Crown, you know. So yeah, anything you see me doing right now is going to be Crown related. Whether it's the book, the film, the therapy, the podcast, whatever comes next, it will be Crown.
Absolutely. You know, and I've known you for a long time. I've known you from, I used to be on Facebook and I used to see the words align yourself. And I used to love it. I've been following your journey for years, and to see the evolution to Crown, and you as a guest speaker at some of my early events as well in coaching, and just you've been doing this for a long time. So the evolution shows it's a journey. It is a journey. And sometimes when people are not seeing results straight away, they get frustrated. They get, oh, I'm not good enough. This doesn't work. When you keep going and push past that, you never know what you'll create at the end of that. So it's all about that resilience and to acknowledge how you are now. I love the fact that you talked about the now, because we are in the future sometimes looking at other people and what they've achieved and what they've got. And then we get into this comparison zone and then we're never good enough. But accepting who you are now is so important. And I think you mentioned about healing who you are, building that relationship with who you are, and knowing the difference between that, what is coaching and what is counseling. So do you want to touch a bit on that and what work you are currently doing with that in that space at the moment?
Yeah. And so it's again, we're conditioned to, and I don't know where it started, probably just like society and consumerism, but we're conditioned to be everywhere but here. So it's like, you've got to strive for this future, don't make the mistakes that from the past. And we're just constantly either running from the past or running towards this future and just not here. And this is the only place we ever are, but we're never here. We're always in one of those. And so what I noticed when I was doing in the self-help work before is that essentially I was trying to help people to think their way to success, or think their way out of their problems, or have new perspectives that can help them to be more positive people. But is anyone a positive person, or do we all experience fluctuations between happiness, sadness, fear, courage? We all experience a range of emotions for a variety of reasons. Should we just be one thing, you know? And I realized that no, we are multifaceted. We are chameleons. We are everything, and we should feel everything at some point, and it's part of what shapes us. And so I found that coaching could only speak to a certain type of individual, an individual who was mentally ready, just a bit stuck. They need guidance. They need you to be in the passenger seat with them and accompany them. But there's some people that, you know, need more than just that, because the car's broken. So it doesn't matter how long they sit in that seat with them and talk them through the quickest way that the sat nav says, or smart goals. No matter how many times they say it, it doesn't matter. You need a new battery, bro. And so that's where therapy comes in. It's like, okay, we're going to need to unpack why your battery got to this point. Why did you allow your car to run out of petrol? Why did you break down on the motorway? Okay, it's more the whys. And I think a lot of people have a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of deep-rooted issues and trauma and things that they just thought were normal. I hear a lot of people say, oh, I didn't know I was poor because everyone was poor. I just, I didn't know that was wrong because that's just how things were those days. But you do those things today and you go to jail, or be cancelled. So what kind of psychological impact did those things have on us when we were growing up? Some of the music we listened to, we didn't know what it was saying, compared to if that would be allowed today and stuff like that. And so there is a clear difference. I would always advise people to go to seek professional help from a doctor, a GP, if you feel like, oh, maybe I am depressed, or maybe this is anxiety, or maybe I just need a coach. Like, go to your doctor. They will advise you, and then you can find a bit of clarity. Or some wonderful coaches out there give free sessions. I think they call them like introduction sessions or whatever it is. You can see if something's for you or not, you know. Hopefully they can be honest and tell you, actually, I don't do this, I don't work with this. But yeah, it's about figuring out, both the client and therapist or coach, what does that person need now? Not what do they need then or in the future, but now. What do they need now? And being honest enough to start that path.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was missing. That's what I was missing before. I was doing all the coaching and the self-help stuff, but there were a lot of people who were in need of therapy and work to deal with some of past traumas. And some people are not ready to deal with them. And that's where something like Crown comes in, where it's palatable. It makes the difficult conversations a little bit more gentle as you're reading it, because it's poetic and the descriptions are beautiful. And I describe your traumas as beautiful, so you don't have to fear them. And maybe that's the step you need to take before you go to a doctor, to be able to say, do you know what? I'm ready to open up about this thing that happened to me, you know, and then maybe that then leads on to coaching, you know, at a certain point. And but on the contrary, there are those who maybe don't need that, and coach is great for them. So you can identify where you are in your journey within Crown.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as we draw to the end of the interview, because we could talk all day.
We could talk all day.
Yeah. We could talk all day. I love to ask, what's one of your favorite quotes? And I know you've got millions of them, but what is one of your favorite quotes?
Of my writing?
Anything.
Well, I would say I've touched on I wish you better days. That one's always applicable. This is not how your story ends really speaks to the mental health side of my work, the semicolon, what that represents. There's beauty in the grey area. That's another one of my strap lines. And it's, again, just touches on, you don't have to always be positive. You don't always have to be negative. We are a mixture of all. And so the highlights, shadows, the darks, the lights, the good times, the bad times, they're what make that middle ground, that grey area beautiful. And so, yeah, there's that. But I would say in the context of today's conversation, it's funny, you brought up the walls in that passage, and I just posted something about walls. Well, today I shared to my story a quote from Crown Infinity. Oh, little caterpillar, be of good courage. At the right time, you will fly. You are not who you are yet.
I love that. And go check that out if it's probably not the story, is it?
No, I think I posted it this morning. But the point is to tie that in back to what I said about legacy. And that gentleman where the technology doesn't exist yet, or even Steve doesn't know where Crown's going to take him, and that you're going to do a film and you're going to do all this stuff. You cannot manufacture your legacy before it's time. And so, little caterpillar, be of good courage where you are right now. At the right time, you will fly. You are not who you are yet. You know? And so that's legacy for me. If at any point in the journey you just judged that caterpillar, you can say, what's this caterpillar's legacy going to be? If we judge it based on where it's at now, it's just this caterpillar. But check on him in like 20 years, maybe, just maybe, it's a butterfly, you know? And so, but each stage was so important, and there's so much beauty in the caterpillar stage, just as there is in the butterfly stage. And so my message to your audience and anyone listening to this is honor the legacy of now, because each stage and each season is sufficient unto itself and has its own beauty. So that would be the quote for today. You are not who you are yet.
I love it. I love it. Wow, wow, wow. Well, thank you, Steve. You have been an amazing guest. I would love
Thank
you to
you.
share. How can people stay in contact with you?
Well, before I say that, I just want to say I'm really proud of you. Like you said, we've worked together for many years. We've done a lot of work, and I've always been keeping my eye on what we're doing. It takes a lot of courage to stand in front of people every day and be positive, be a light for them, even on your dark days, even days where you may not feel like it, or you may not feel very optimistic yourself that day. But to stand in that gap for other people, it takes a lot of courage. And someone who's done that before and seen how hard it was to do that, I really admire you for that. And that's why it was a no-brainer that I'm always going to be open to do these things. You mentioned before the call that I don't do anything. I don't do podcasts. I don't do interviews. So, that just shows how highly I think about you and what you do. So yeah, keep it up. I think it's phenomenal. And you don't know how many lives you're impacting, and the legacies that you're creating for yourself, for young people at each moment. It's very, very powerful.
Gonna make me cry. Thank
But
you.
yeah, to your question, all of my work you can find on iamstevewhyte.com. Yeah, everything's there. Books, information about what I'm up to, tours, film, everything that I've discussed today, you'll be able to find there.
Amazing, amazing. Wow. So everybody check out Steve on his website, and I'll drop the links below in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for listening to us as we dance in this conversation. Remember, we are all born with a gift. And we all have special skills, talents, and gifts that we can use to be successful. And now's the time to unwrap your gifts. Subscribe to our channels and see you soon. Bye.